Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Pamela, and you are watching Pam Entertainment TV, where we review movies, television series, and incidents in pop culture just to see how those incidents affect our daily lives. Listen, you see it scrolling across the bottom of the screen. This is going to be our first half non spoiler, second half spoiler review of the movie Devotion. As you enter, please like the movie and subscribe. Once you subscribe, you can then peruse the playlist that I have of all the movies and television shows that I have reviewed. We are not going to be here long. This is Devotion. This is a movie starring Jonathan Majors, Glenn Powell, Christina Jackson, Thomas Sadowski, and Joe Jonas. It's directed by J.D. Dillard. And it's written by Jake Crane and Jonathan A.H. Stewart, and it's adapted on the book written by Adam Makos. Makos? So let's get into it. The non spoiler review. If you are interested in movies about war, if you are interested in movies about camaraderie, if you're interested in a movie about uh, love, this is a movie for you. So I would say this. I think overall, I think Jonathan Majors and Glenn Powell, they played off very well for each other to show how their relationship built over time. It didn't seem like a lot of time, but it built over time. And it was also good to see the relationships that that Jesse Brown had with his other fellow aviators in the movie. It was also good to see his relationship with his wife and his daughter. Now, uh, my heart just went out to their daughter Pam because my name is Pamela. So anytime I see you run into another Pam or Pamela, it just warms my heart. It warms my heart. She seemed, and the little girl that played her seemed like a very, she seemed like a very, very independent and inquisitive child. That's what she gave me. That loved her mommy, and that was very cute. I like that. Um, I'm saying all the time. I will tell you just the look of the movie. Everything was dark. Even when it was daylight, it seemed like it was overcast and kind of somber. And I'm wondering, was that the mood that they were trying to get to you? That even though they go through a lot of stuff, because it seems like a lot of stuff that they did was in the dark. When they were at their briefings, they were in the dark. When he was at home with his wife, Jesse, they were in the dark. So the cinematography was very dark with bluish hues. Uh, it was a very serious, somber type mood. Um, and I will tell you, I was not familiar with the story of Jesse Brown. My brother told me about him, and so I did not know uh, really what had happened. And then he told me what happened. So then when I saw the cinematography, I was like, yeah, because they're gonna keep it dark and they're gonna keep it somber and they're gonna keep it serious, and they did. I think Jonathan Majors did. He did a good job. There was just some areas where I would have loved to have seen just a little bit of levity in them. We saw some, but I would have loved to seen some levity uh, while they were like in the barracks or something like that. And so I just think he played. He was just there. I could see some of the that him trying to relate some of the quirkiness about this man, but it was falling a little flat simply because the way uh, everybody was trying to I don't know the best way to say that. I guess because of the time, they were not allowing him to show the quirkiness of who he was. He was always seemed to be very stoic. Um, I do remember his wife making a little statement about once you get to know him, he is a very funny and engaging type person. And then that made me think, okay, he may have been a little introverted as well. But it would have been nice to see uh it would have been nice to see him in other relationships besides the ones that we saw. That's just a personal thing that I would have liked to see. So I think Christina Jackson playing Daisy, I think she did a really good job. Their chemistry seemed very, very genuine, seemed very, very loving, and seemed, very real. I did like their chemistry on screen. They didn't seem awkward with each other, and that was shown on the screen. Overall, the movie was a good movie. Like I said, it was a wartime type movie. Um, and so I've never really been interested in those types of movies, but I did appreciate them talking about the Korean War and all of those soldiers that fought in the Korean War, aka the Forgotten War. Because once Vietnam hit, it seems like everybody kind of just, it was either World War II or Vietnam. They seem to not want to talk about the fact that there was a campaign as far as the Korean War. Overall, again, it was a good movie. Uh, as far as like the pacing of the movie, it seemed a little rushed. I really would have loved to seen a bigger span of Jesse's life, like even before he joined the Navy. Like just have a little bit. I think that they could have spent at least 3 to 5 minutes of him training as a naval aviator. How was he then training as a aviator? How was he, how did he meet Daisy? I would have loved to have seen some of that. If we could have gotten some of that, excuse me, excuse me, I would have loved to seen some of that. Again, overall, the movie was a good movie. I would get you to go out and see it. Support the cast. Support Jonathan Majors because he did a good job. So we're getting ready to do a spoiler review. So I'm gonna give you a few seconds to think about it. All right. Gave you enough time so you could think about whether or not you want to stay here to this part of the movie. This is a spoiler. I'm going to spoil this movie for you. So if you do not want it to be spoiled, I gave you 10 seconds to get out. I'm just talking right now to give you a few more, for you to think about it. Go to the movie, come on back, and we'll talk about it. All right. So let's go real quickly. So this movie is about the Navy aviator Jesse Davis, who flew for the Navy during the Korean War, the North Korean conflict. He and it was basically about him and his relationship with his fellow aviators and his relationship with his wife. We see a couple of things when it comes on that Glenn Powell, who was playing Tom Hudner, when Tom Hudner came to the I think they were stationed out in Rhode Island. They were up there. He came there and he talked about I guess they called the World War II the Big Show, and he was saying that the month before he graduated college or Naval Academy or wherever he went to school, the war ended. So he enlisted, he signed up, but he didn't get a chance to participate in the big show. So you have all of these naval officers that are flying, but they don't have nothing to fly into. And so they talked about that. And then we meet Jesse. And when we meet Jesse, it is jarring because this man is hurling uh, racial epithets to himself. And it is jarring, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? We learn later in the movie that he does that. He wrote down every nasty thing someone said to him, whether they called him a monkey, the N word, boy, all of those racially demeaning words that people will say to black folks, he would he would repeat those because he would use that to motivate him, like, I'm supposed to be here. You can say all you want, you can say all want you want to say, but this N word, this monkey, this such and such is here flying these planes when you said it couldn't be done. I really wish we would have seen some of his training, or they had talked about some of his training, about what he went through. He had described to Tom that he went through training, and they sent him, like, I guess when the other soldiers did it once or twice, they made him do it 10 times, and every time they made him do it, I think he said he was training in the pool, and every time they made him do it, uh they would do all kinds of things that where he felt like they were trying to kill him. They would put weights on his suit. They would sabotage this. It was a whole lot of stuff that it wasn't a lot, but you can just kind of play in your mind like all the things that they did to try to break him so he wouldn't succeed. So we meet him, and like I said, when they first meet with each other, they were kind of cold to each other. Um, I think he had like one good friend in the he had one good friend in the movie. I'm trying to get what his name was. It was like it was it Morning? Yeah. Carol Morning. That was like his one good friend. In I don't know what to call those in his aviator class. Y'all let me know down in the comments what if you're in the military, what you call that when they're just a group of aviators. I know it's something you group. So I'm gonna say group because I don't know what they call that. Um Within their group, squadron. Is it squadron? I think it's squadron, but put it down there at the bottom. So as we go on, it's just them kind of melding together. And you remember it's the 1950s. So people are very overt about their racism, and they're very overt about doing what they can, white men doing what they can to kind of break the black man. And there is a scene there that was just so very, very telling. Uh when he aboard when they boarded the ship. So let's just kind of go through. Tom and him kind of came together simply because I think Jesse's car broke down. Tom gave him a ride. He was able to meet Daisy. And then their relationship kind of got closer from there. There's a little stumble in the relationship, but their relationship kind of got closer there. I would like to talk about the relationship between Jesse and Daisy. I thought that was just such a sweet and endearing relationship. They seemed to gel, and it just seemed like it was them against the world. I mean, that's all we saw. The only time we saw Daisy with a friend is when she got the news about Jesse. But they just seemed to be them against the world. They seemed to have a beautiful bubble that they lived in. Jesse, Daisy, and Pam. Uh, and they seem to have a beautiful relationship, and she seemed to understand his goals, be okay with his goals, but she made sure that she was a woman that stayed in the present. That's the thing that uh endeared me to Daisy. She was in the present. She didn't worry about the past. She wasn't worried about the future. Every time you saw them together, they were in the present. They made sure that they were loving in the present. And then when you do that, I think you can show up for your partner in ways that people may not think that you're showing up. Because there was a cute little scene toward the middle of the thing when it was Daisy's birthday, and because he told her he was going to write her, and there was a little scene about Daisy's birthday, and she was on a scavenger hunt through the house, and I thought that was just the cutest thing. He writes her a letter, makes sure she has her letter for her birthday, and he sends her through a scavenger hunt through the house. And I just thought these two people really stayed in the present. They acted and they loved in the present, and it was just a beautiful thing to see. It was a great thing to see the relationship between Tom and Jesse get closer. However, that happened after we lost Carol. Now let me kind of put up because I'm not going to spend that much time on it. But basically, they started off flying one type of plane, and Jesse was very, very proficient in flying that one type of plane. Then, when they were called up to go over, first they were going to Europe, and they had a little stint in France, and then but they changed the type of plane, and then they had to qualify in that plane. You know how when they drive on those aircraft carriers and then they have to put that little thing down so the rope will catch them. So that's how they had to qualify to get on the aircraft, because if they couldn't do that, they couldn't join the campaign. And so Jesse had a little time with that. And one of the things I think that was so telling about black men in the 50s is that, again, you remember when I talked about how Jesse had talked about how during his training they tried to sabotage him. uh, he couldn't even trust. He had to do things on his own because he couldn't even trust the, what do they call it, the little signal guy to tell him how he's flying. And he was having issues with the plane because the plane was so different. He couldn't see over the top of the plane, so it was difficult for him to see, because they did not train them on these planes. They trained him on a totally different plane. And I guess when they went into combat, they wanted them to be in these trains, and I don't know why they didn't train them on the planes that they were going to fly in combat. That made no sense to me, but okay. He qualified, but he didn't do because he had to go back. He had to go around a couple of times, but he qualified. But one of his friends on the thing, Mr. Carroll, he was testing out a plane. They were trying to see if the gyroscope was working, and the gyroscope was working. But when he came back to land the plane, he over throttled and just slammed his plane into the ocean. It was such a sad sight. It was such a sad sight. I thought they had a nice little interesting thing, because like I said, I'm not gonna spoil everything. They had a nice little interesting dalliance in France, Cannes, where they met Elizabeth Taylor, and I thought that was cute. I wonder if that was true, or was that something that they played up for the film? Was that something that they played up for the film? But it was just a cute little gesture, and it was just cute to see that how they met Elizabeth Taylor, and I thought that was cute. Now, we lost Jesse, y'all. And it just now Jesse flew a campaign. I guess that's what y'all call it, y'all. Don't get me the line. He flew a mission, not a campaign. He flew a mission where he was successful. And this is one of the things that kind of tried their relationship, Tom and Jesse, because Jesse is his commander. And one of the things that tried their relationship was they were supposed to take out a bridge. Someone shot and they took out one bridge, the bridge between China and North Korea. They were trying to take out those bridges that will slow down the Chinese from coming into North Korea, and then thus taking over South Korea. So he worked and he did things, and he was a little loner. When they told him, hey, let's go back, he decided that he was going to take another shot. He did take that other shot, and they did knock down those bridges. What happened was that when Tom wrote the report, he wrote in there that Jesse was insubordinate, and Tom had to learn very, very quickly, because he was like, well, that's just what happened, and that's not going to affect you anything because we got everything was done. Why does it matter? And Jesse had to explain to him, your insubordination is different. I won't get promoted if insubordination is in my fitness record. Everybody's going to say I'm not going to do what I'm told, and no one is going to want to follow me. No one's going to want to work with me, and it affects me deeply. So Tom's and once Jesse kind of explained it to him, Tom got the other guys to write, a letter saying, hey, even though that's what it was for the best because there was an opportunity and he took it. Jesse told him, that's all well and good. It's on a piece of paper, but he says, but the insubordination is there, and it doesn't matter what y'all write. They're going to be looking at me at my fitness and thinking that I won't do it. I won't be able to do a good job because I've got this stain on my record. So Tom asked him, well, what do you think I'm supposed to do? He says, I need you to be my wingman. I need you to trust what trust me. And like I trust you, I want you to trust me. And he should have talked to him. I don't know if they do that in the military, like just kind of give him a heads up so he can say, hey, could you word it a different way? Could you do something different? I don't know. The movie was not that long. Again, we saw them take out the bridge. Then they had to go back to war because the Marines were getting stomped because they were on the ground. And like I said, they were in a foreign country, so they didn't have the layout of the land. And so they were getting stomped. And so Jesse's them squadron came in and did some air support for them. On their way back, one of the Chinese soldiers shot out Jesse's plane's oil thing, and so his plane was leaking oil. And when his plane leaked oil, that that's going to seize up the engine after a while, and inevitably that's what happened. And so he had to do an emergency landing. They thought that he was going to do an emergency landing, and they were going to swing back by to pick him up. What happened was, at first they thought he had burned in the fire, but what happened was, when he went down in the plane, the top part of the plane kind of crushed, and so he was literally stuck in the plane and he couldn't get out. So Tom crashed his plane to try to help him, and they couldn't help him. And in that area, it got really, really cold. It had gotten down to I think it was 30 below, 29 or 30 below. And like I said, he wasn't dressed for that type of weather. They didn't have the equipment to get him out of the plane. So they had to in essence leave him, but he had died before they had to leave him. One of the things that happened is because where he was in North Korea, he was close to the Chinese or something happened. So they don't like for their planes to get in enemy hands. So they blow the planes up, and they inevitably had to blow both of the planes that were on the ground. They had to blow them up. And he was still stuck in that plane. So they never were able to recover his remains. And from what my understanding is, to this day, they have not been able to recover his remains. So, and that's the movie ended. Like I said, I don't want to spoil everything, but again, this movie, I wish they would have expounded on his training, to see how he was with his training, because we got a little glimpse that he did make some friends in his training, because the guy who flew the helicopter knew him from the training, and he was like, well, I'm going to go back for him because him and I had a friendship, and I want to go back for him. So it was a very endearing story, and I can see why the Navy likes him, or was very protective of him like that. Again, I really wish we had seen so much more of his story. I wish it would have just not that the part in the movie that we saw, it could have been condensed down, and then you could have added maybe like 5 or 10 minutes of the movie dedicated to him and his training. I really would have loved to see that. I really would have loved to see his camaraderie. I really would have loved to see how soldiers in the 1950s still had to go through that kind of overt racism and bigotry, not for the mere sake of seeing it, but for the mere sake of showing that Black soldiers have fought in all wars, from the Civil War to the war between Britain. They have fought, but they've always fought, and they've always been viewed as second class citizens. I don't know how the military is working today, but it would have been interesting to see how this man went through all of that and overcame that, and then plus all the other things that he went through. So if you're interested in going to see that movie, go see it. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I was crying bucket tears, even though I knew that he was going to die in the end, I was still crying bucket tears. I was crying them bucket tears because I was like, oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord. I didn't want to see it, but I had to see it because I was sitting in the movie. But again, that's devotion. It's now playing in the theaters. Go see it. Go see it. I think it, again, if you are a war person, go see that. I think you'll find some interesting stuff in there. If you're not, I still think you go support Jonathan Majors, go support Glenn Powell, go support Christiana, uh, Christine, is it Christina? Yes, Christina Jackson, Thomas Sadowski, and Joe Jonas. Go support them. Go support this movie. Uh, and as always, people, bye bye.